Alright, so you're going to start by turning the temperature on your stovetop to medium. What you want to do is you're going to get some bacon. Doesn't really matter what kind, doesn't have to be thick or thin, and you're going to cut it up into little small-sized ribbons. You see me struggle with the bag here. Okay, and once you've gotten those all sliced up, you're going to put them in your hot pan. See, I turned mine up just a little too hot because I haven't used this one before, but you don't want them to burn on the bottom of the pan. What you want to do is render out that fat, so you want to cook it on like a medium-low. Okay, my one complaint about this thing is the difference between setting number 3 and setting number 2 is scorching. I put it on 2 and it's like not cooking at all. I put it on 3 and it's burning the bottom of my pan. Okay, and what you're going to do now is you're going to get some smoked pork sausage. I always use andouille just because, you know, red beans and rice is Cajun and andouille is Cajun. It's spiced really well. It tastes really good. But any like you'll get a kielbasa will do, any sort of smoked pork sausage. You want to cut them thick because in the pot they're going to shrink up a little bit, and you want a nice, you know, bite. You don't want like little slivers of sausage. So cut them pretty thick. And what we're going to do here is once the bacon's all rendered out, we're going to remove it from the pan. We're going to brown the sausage in the rendered bacon fat. Like I said here, the bottom of my pan is a little scorched. You want to make sure you turn that down on your stovetop. If you know your stovetop well, you should be able to do this. And then, just to be clear, you can do this in a stock pot, any high-walled pot, really. You can even kind of cut the recipe down if you need to. Okay, and you can see me kind of awkwardly putting these sausages in here, but this is a really key step because you're going to get a lot of color and a lot of flavor on these sausages that you'll notice at the end of the dish. If you don't do this, you'll notice the sausage is a little more bland. As you can see, it looks nice and crispy there. And you want to do this to all your sausage. Just make sure to get both sides. It's also going to transport a lot of that andouille flavor into the fat. All that seasoning. Okay, next up we're going to be slicing our vegetables. I always start with celery and onion, mainly because they're going to take the longest to sort of tender up when you're cooking them. Alright, important thing with root vegetables like celery, lettuce, anything like that, you want to, when you pull them apart from the bottom of the stalk, you're going to want to wash them because they're going to have a lot of dirt trapped in there. Now, I'm sure this is pretty common knowledge, but you never know. I've definitely cooked some dirty vegetables in my lifetime. Not very proud of it, but it happens. Okay, and there's not any really particular way to go about this. You're just going to cut the ends off, and then you're going to slice them to a medium thickness. Not thin enough that they're slivers, but not thick enough that they're chunks. And you're going to keep the leaves in there because the leaves add a lot of good taste. They're very flavorful. I don't know if you've ever tried celery leaves, but they have a lot of flavor. They're very strong. Sausage should be coming out now. Okay, and then now that our sausage is done, we're going to fish those out of the pot here. Put them aside with our bacon because they're going to go back in after we saute these vegetables. Okay, and so a good trick to cutting onions, if you never cut an onion before, is cut the end off, trim the bit of the root, dice them in half, and then you're going to go across radially slicing it thin, but not all the way to the base of the onion there, so it's not cutting all the way through. And then you're going to go to the front and you're going to dice it. And so what that's going to do is it's going to create uniform little chunks. And you'll see it here. It's always best to do that little claw, so you're not trimming the tips of your fingers off. But this is a really efficient way to cut an onion. You know, some people will say you're going to want to cut it down the middle as well, but I find that's a really unnecessary step. If you really need to do the finer, you can just dice up the little pile of cut up onions at the end as well. So we're going to transfer these to the oil, let them saute a bit, and your house should start to smell real fragrant, real rooty. This is called Trinity in Cajun cooking, but you know, instead of the bell pepper, if you wanted to do this for any other soup, like a French soup, that'd be a mirepoix, you'd add carrot instead. But you see here, I'm about to bust out a nice green bell pepper. You're going to cut the end off, and then you see those lines. You're going to want to cut around those lines all the way down. Then you're going to flip them on the bottom side because the top is slippery, you can cut yourself. And you're going to cut them into strips. Pile them together, and then you're going to dice them the other way. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's too uniform. We're going to be cooking these down over a couple hours, so. Now your pot should really start to smell good. Last two are optional. Now, I'm not afraid of spice, so I like mine spicy, and I like mine with a little bit of garlic, but not everyone's a fan. I usually go with 3 cloves of garlic, 1 or 2 jalapenos. It's really up to you and preference. But you're going to smash them with the side of your knife, and then you're going to dice them into little chips. And garlic always goes in last because garlic burns. So that's the last thing you add to your pot. And you're not going to want them to be in there for too long. So the minute you start to see those go translucent, it is time to hit it with something wet.
Ooh, that smells so good, doesn't it? The garlic, right?
Okay, you're going to add your sausage and your bacon back to the simmering veggies. Stir. And you cook those till they're translucent. So this recipe calls for 2 things of vegetable or chicken stock. Usually hit the pan with about a half a cup of beer. If you're not 21, obviously, don't do this. You can just go straight to the stock. I'm going to let that simmer for a second before adding the stock. Okay, and you're going to want to make sure that the stock is room temperature. Mine was cold, so it totally killed my boil, and it took forever to come back up. Okay, so you're going to add your bay leaves, make sure that comes back to a boil, put the lid on it. And when it does, it's going to look a bit like this. Stir the bottom, make sure nothing sticks. And then after about an hour or 2, you're going to come back in. It's going to start looking a little bit more opaque, a little bit more thick. You're going to come through and you're going to kind of mash up those beans a little bit, stir it a little bit. Because if you mash up those beans, you're going to take the starch out, and the starch is going to make it thick. Now we're going to add our cup of rice with boiling water. Bring it back up to a boil, a rolling boil, and then simmer. On the lowest setting, it can go for 30 minutes. Afterwards, you're going to take a nice big scoop of your rice, ladle over some beans, take a nice piece of bread, and then feed it to a loved one.